What's going on, world? It's that time of the year again, election season, which means the black community will be gaslit, bullied, shamed, and guilt-tripped into voting for a politician that has limited or more than likely zero tangible policy to benefit the black community, all while being championed as a savior of democracy in the Democratic Party. The exploitation of the black vote. Let's talk about it. The black community is the backbone of the Democratic Party. Each election cycle, black people will vote Democrat over 90% of the time. In fact, the black community is one of the few or only groups in this country that will overwhelmingly majority vote for one political party time and time again. Despite this loyalty, for the large part, the black community has not seen reciprocation from the Democratic Party. In the past 60 years, the Democratic Party has not passed any substantial, tangible policy specifically for the black community. Oftentimes, we get symbolic gestures, victories, action, but not tangible policy. And if we do get some type of legislation, it's oftentimes grouped in under people of color or minorities or BIPOC. And although those groups may be marginalized and need help too, the black community is the backbone of the voting bloc. So we need tangible policy. And for the large part, although obviously there's been strides in this country, many of the same socioeconomic conditions that plagued the black community in the civil rights era in the 60s still plague us today. So, to be objective and balanced, just because I'm critical of the Democratic Party does not mean I shame or knock black people for voting Democrat. Because of the historical importance of voting in this country, and because largely it's a two-party system, the only other option is voting Republican. And because the Republican Party has never done any true organic outreach to the black community, they never proposed or passed any true tangible policy to uplift the black community, and because things are so partisan, oftentimes their rhetoric and commentary seem to be against many things the black community talks about. So with that, I'll never use disparaging language as the Democratic plantation because that implies somehow, some way, automatically the Republican Party is a better option. And in fact, I think oftentimes the turnoff to the Republican Party for the black community is that when a black person is given a platform in the Republican Party, oftentimes their purpose is to talk about race and race only, talk about all the problems in the black community, offer no solutions, and never talk about the role that racism and white supremacy has played in policy and legislation. So that's why I don't see the black community objectively having any political party that specifically is loyal to it. The two-party system has become so dominant in our country that everything is hyper-partisan. Nowadays, if you criticize one political party, that means you automatically support the other political party. It's as if being independent and objective doesn't exist anymore. In fact, a recent survey showed that 7 out of 10 people only talk and associate with the same people from the political party or ideology. In that same survey, over 80% of people in each political party thinks the other political party is ruining the country. This creates such a hive mindset and a groupthink in which ideas and thought is not discussed, where civility doesn't happen. Each political party will stand on their subjective morality or virtue signal, and ultimately the black community is the biggest losers out of this. If you ask someone in the Democratic Party, what has the Democratic Party done to help the black community, they'll automatically tell you everything negative about the Republican Party and go on a rant about Trump. If you ask someone in the Republican Party, what has the Republican Party done to help the black community, they'll automatically tell you everything negative about the Democratic Party and tell you them are the true racists. Neither party can objectively really tell you what they've done to help the black community. The only difference is the Democratic Party will at least will publicly acknowledge the problems and issues impacting the black community. Although policy and solutions don't come with it, they'll at least will acknowledge it. And because everything's so partisan, the Republican Party ultimately will just reject these rhetoric and call some liberal agenda. So the black community needs to be a little more independent and objective with our groupthink and how we go about things. So what can the black community do? Well, for starters, the black community needs to be a lot more strategic with our vote. We need to move like free agents out here. Know our power and our worth. God, treat this like a relationship. Because right now, our partner, the Democratic Party, knows they do not need to provide any tangible policy to get the black vote. And that's wrong, because voting is supposed to be a transactional process. Instead of getting policy, each year we get pandered down to. We get rappers, entertainers, celebrities, people who before election season never have any political commentary, but suddenly show up as Democrat surrogates. And in fact, this tactic has been used for decades. Malcolm X once talked about this.
They called leaders. This included Lena Horne. This included Dick Gregory. And this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community, and have been made celebrities and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear.
So, as we see, this has been happening for years. The black community does not get any sophisticated policy. We get these elementary talking points, pandered down to, acting like we're children. We need substantial social economic policy to uplift us. Until we get that respect, they don't deserve our vote. For the large part, the black community has gatekeepers in terms of political commentary in the black community. And oftentimes, this is comprised of the older black generation. As it makes sense, as the older black generation is the largest voting bloc in the country. Oftentimes comprised of many various civil rights activists, social leaders, elected officials, people who have dedicated their time and energy to helping the black community. And we appreciate all their sacrifice, we appreciate everything done to benefit the black community, especially in the face of white supremacy and racism. With that being said, just because at one point in time you helped and fought for the black community decades ago doesn't automatically absolve you for being critiqued or being challenged. Because nowadays, the different generational divides have a different way of thinking and seeing things. And especially with the younger black generation, we see the world differently from the older black generation. Because of their sacrifices, we've grown up in a different America. So because of that, we're not oftentimes dissatisfied with just being here. We're not satisfied with just symbolic victories and gestures. We understand the importance of tangible policy. We understand that there has been strides made. We do have more social equity and more social opportunities. And because of that, we need to exercise that. So the black generation as a whole need to understand that we need a shift in our way of thinking, as the younger black generation coming up is going to be the voting bloc. So we need more voices. We need more people to speak up on behalf. And that starts with us, and that starts being more aware of our issues, and that also starts with slowly having that change of guard and people stepping up and bringing new ideas to shape the black community. Here's an uncomfortable reality. For the large part, the black community does not have any political power in this country. Look, there are 435 members of the House of Representatives. Only 56 are black. There are 50 senators. Only 2 are black. So from a national level, the black community does not have much representation. And in fact, each election cycle, unfortunately due to white supremacy and racism and inequities and financial gains, the black community does not have the same political capital that oftentimes other communities have. So when we do have black candidates running, oftentimes they're not backed by black dollars. And when you're not backed by black dollars, you can't expect a black agenda. I do think many politicians do want to help the black community. However, oftentimes when you're on a constant cycle of re-election and a constant cycle of trying to stay above the water, you have to kind of stay in line to your donors, to people who are lobbyists to you, people who are working and kind of controlling your campaign. And typically that's kind of the puppet tier element of the black community, as ultimately we're just saying and doing the things in which people who are backing our campaigns, which oftentimes is some type of liberal progressive agenda, and therefore just Democrat surrogates. And so for black individual think, it oftentimes does not happen on a national level. We need to understand that we need to make sure our politicians are backed. So we need to have grassroots movements to put into our politicians so they are able to think on our behalf and not be controlled or influenced by anyone else. From a solutionary standpoint, the black community needs to be more aggressive and on the offense with our vote. Demand tangible policy. Don't be satisfied with just symbolic gestures and breadcrumbs and handouts. Of course, this election, there are very important things on the ballot as usual, things that could dictate and shape the country. So make sure you have your voice heard, especially in terms of local elections. Those honestly are more important than anything else. If you're going to vote blue no matter who, just make sure you know who you're voting for, as racism and white supremacy is a bipartisan product. Racism and white supremacy is a bipartisan product. Yes, our ancestors sacrificed for us to have the right to vote, but they also sacrificed for us to have the right to choose to vote. Don't be bullied and shamed into voting for someone who doesn't represent you. If someone's a Democrat and they have policy to help the black community or policy that you resonate with, vote for them. If someone's Republican and they have policy to help the black community or policy that you resonate with, vote for them. Of course, as Americans, you can vote for anybody, any topic, any issue. It doesn't have to be issues that only help the black community, because Americans, many things we can help us with. But with that being said, just make sure you're voting for your own conscience and being independent with your thought as much as possible. Appreciate you tuning in today. Stay tuned, stay hip, stay connected.